Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ibukunwilliams. I'm sure you guys have been having a lot of fun. Today basically is my how I shot it series. In this series, I'm going to be talking about breaking down images, how I shot images, and I'm going to be talking about a particular shoot that I did recently, and I'm going to break it down to you guys how I actually went about it. And to be honest, I'm going to be doing this a lot, so I would love you guys to go through my images, follow me on Instagram and all my social media platforms, look at my images and let me know in the comments which images you would like me to break down. In this particular one, I'm going to be breaking down one I called Ethereal. And if you guys check my Instagram, you're going to see Ethereal is pinned to my page, but I don't know, by the time you're watching this video, maybe it's not pinned, whatever. But Ethereal is one series I created with one of my friends, Davo. It's the Frenchman on Instagram. You'd see his links in the bio. I created this look, which I styled myself. I got some art pieces from GB Lagos Art. His links are in the description below, and yeah, that's it. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, welcome back. The first thing that happened in this series was that there was this inspiration. This type of inspiration always hits me. I saw the kind of person this particular model Davo was, and I wanted to first of all create a piece that kind of like elevates this very strong masculine energy and very strong African essence as well. I wanted something that seemed really out of this world, something that seemed a little bit in spirit, and something that seemed in culture as well. So I kind of like merged all these things together to create this particular piece. One of the things I did first before we actually did the shoot was to put these ideas together. I got paint and brushes. I decided that I was going to create some motifs on his body, paint on his body, and which I actually did myself. So I got a brush, I got paint, and I painted a lot of couple of designs on his body to give this African feel. And I also got to link up with one of my friends who gave me a lot of art pieces that I could actually work with masks, chains, bangles, and all sorts of things that were not even supposed to be used the way they were used. I had to creatively use them that way. Some of the bangles actually happened to be decorations and stands for something else, which he wore on his hand, which came out so beautifully. But in this particular image, I actually did create this piece with hard lights, which I always tend to use a lot. Now in this particular image, if you look at the image, I'm just going to open it right now on my phone so that I can look at it. Now in Ethereal, what I call this was the expression of freedom and flow. I was trying to create the illusion that he was defying gravity. I wanted to create this illusion where it seemed that he was in some space. I didn't want it to seem like he was in the sky, however. I just wanted it to look like he was in some space, basically, that cannot really necessarily be defined. And I wanted to remove the identity from him, and that's why I gave him masks to wear. So I wanted to remove that identity. Obviously our ego as human beings tend to connect to us. The Yoruba people would say ojuloro wa. And so when you look at the eyes of someone, it creates an identity. So I tried to remove all of that from him by making him wear a mask, basically. And when he wears that mask, it removes the identity and opens that image up to a lot of interpretation. Now in this image, what I also did was that in order to try and create this illusion that is defying gravity, I wanted him to jump. But I didn't want a situation where he would just jump up or take a picture and he lands down. It would obviously look like, oh, he's jumping off. So what we did was that I put something soft on the floor, a mattress actually, and then I put a table beside him and I had him jump off the table onto the mattress a couple of times. And I wanted him to somersault, I wanted him to be free, I wanted all of that to happen in that image. And that's really what I was going for. So after I first of all prepared and styled some of the pieces together that I wanted in terms of what he was going to put on his body, and also painted the artwork on his body, I also made him wear wide spread pants that would give this huge spread to his to his leg and the lower part of his body. So in that situation, I had him jump off the table onto the mattress, many times until I got the shots I was looking for. Now, if you look at the image properly, you would see that the light is a very hard light. It's very bright. It's a very bright situation. So what I did was to take a bare bulb. Now, a lot of people tend to use soft boxes when they shoot. I'm not necessarily scared of actually throwing a strobe. Bare bulb, like just bam, snap, like increase the power and brighten up the whole environment and that light, that kind of thing. But the thing about shooting with hard lights is that it creates a lot of contrast. It creates a lot of contrast in an image. So sometimes it might not look so appealing if you don't necessarily know how to manage it. But here's the secret. Yes, there's a secret. You have to learn how to fill up this light properly. You just don't use one light source, you also fill it up. Oh yeah, I didn't say that. It's actually one light source. I shot with one strobe, nothing else, one strobe. But what I did, that is the secret behind it, is that I filled up the shadows as much as I could. I had a V flat on one side, I had a V flat on the other side. I was shooting against a white background, all of that. So I made sure I put in a lot of white around the environment to actually fill up all those shadows, because white easily bounces light, black absorbs it. So if you look at images where black could be used as something you call a negative fill, you want to throw light at the subject but you don't want the light to bounce back, that kind of thing, then you use a black bounce card. It's called a negative fill. But in this situation, because I'm using a hard light, which obviously already creating that shadow for me, I still want to fill up all those dark shadows in the background. So I use white bounce cards almost all around the place, and that creates that feel for me. So there are three major things that I would say that I did in this image. One was to use hard lights, two was to fill up all those shadows, and three was for me to defy gravity, basically, by having him jump on the table, off and on the table. Now if you also look at his skin, his skin seems to be shining. Yes, that's one thing I also would like, I would also like you to notice in the image. I wouldn't want his skin to just, I wouldn't say dull, but I wouldn't want it to absorb all that light, because obviously he has a darker skin tone. I wanted to see all the structure on his body. So we had to oil his body up with oil and maybe spray some water and oil as well, to just make it have that very easy shine. And the one thing about using hard lights or a bare board is that because it's a very sharp, bright light, it bounces off anything, it reflects almost anything. The reflections are stronger. That's what's so interesting about it. If you use soft lights, the reflections, it will be soft as well. But if you use hard light, the reflections are softer. So when I make his body have this shiny surface, the reflections tend to pop in your face, and that's something that I did in this image. Something else that I also did was the framing. Framing plays a very, very huge role. Composition plays a very huge role in creating your images. Look at the image now. You see that some of the angles are wide angles. I use wide angles, awkward vantage points. Some of the vantage points I did was to bend down really low and have him come tilt towards the camera, and then I move my camera up, and because of that wide angle, it creates this illusion. Now, because of what I was going for, I wanted it to look ethereal. I wanted it to look somewhat spiritual. So it's when you want to do something like that, you don't want to do something conventional, something that would maybe look like a portrait of somebody sitting down in a house, or which is easily relatable to life. However, when you want to do something with that feel, you want to go for the awkward angles, you want to go for the awkward situations. So that is one thing I did. And if you look at his poses too, that's also something I made sure that I did in the pose. I made him pose like he was in some type of space, and for him to even give me that pose, I had to prep him up as well. There's something else that you guys have to understand, that you can't just expect your model to just do what you have in mind. You have to know what you want, right? And that's why they are professional models. I would say that the Frenchman Davo is a very professional model. The professional model is a model that can literally bring out the idea that you have in mind. You are able to pass across that idea to the model, and the model is able to execute it. And so I already prepped him and said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the energy I want to get from you. This out of the world, this unconventional energy. This, you're not looking happy, you're not looking sad, you're just looking like you are in your own space, you're in your own world, you're in your own universe. Not your own, but your own as defined by me, which I've defined here. So that's what happened in this image, and you see a lot of all those poses. I was able to bring out that energy from him, and trust me, I mean, as you can see in the images, that is we killed it. We really did kill it. Now, another thing that I would like to talk about now is my post-production. Now, in my post-production, I know I love black and white, by the way. I do a lot of things in black and white, and I feel like black and white, removes color from the eye. It distracts, it distracts. Color is not, I won't say color is a distraction. I would say color is an addition. Color is we see color, we all see color. So color creates emotion, creates feeling. If it was in color and those trousers were red, it would be different from if the trousers were blue or purple or whatever situation that it was. So for me, in terms of black and white gives me structure, because once you remove color from the situation, the human eye tends to look at just the structure of the image, and is the structure I was really going for in this image. Structurally his body, structurally his pose, structurally what his skin looks like, and structurally like the elements that are all around him, and structurally even the fact that he's defying gravity. So after creating these images, I've put them in black and white, and that gives me structure. I love structure a lot, and if you look at this image like this, the way it is, the black and white for me killed it. Like, if you look at the colors too, I mean, the colored version of this image, which I'll just show you right now, is really beautiful as well. I mean, some of you will even still see the color and say, oh, I prefer the color, but personally, as a personal preference, I prefer the black and whites. Also, if you look at some of the poses too, I pose them in a way that I can also feature, or I would say show some of those elements that I've put on his body, especially the body paint. The structures of the designs that I've put on his body. I've made him pose in a way that he turns his body, and I can see what is on his hand, and I can see what is on his wrist, and I can see what is on his face. Do you get what I mean? Like, I can see everything in the image. If I pose him in a way that something is hiding, maybe not that the image will come out bad, but it might not just say the story. It might not just come out as much as I want it to. Oh my god, it's 4:44. My phone just guys, man, I'm in the spirit. But anyways, so now one of the best ways to create this illusion of defying gravity, which is the next noun to talk about, is that he's jumping off of, like I said, a table, and is landing on a mattress, right? But when I clean in post-production, when I clean off that table out of the way, and I clean off the mattress out of the way, so in terms of relativity, you can't really know what is going on. There's something about relativity and the human eye. The human brain only works by relativity. If you look at a very large picture, maybe of a landscape, it makes sense to you to say, oh, this is really large. Let me say it this way. There are a couple of movies here where you see a car driving through a particular scene, right? And it looks very believable to you. And when you go to the BTS, you see that they actually just made that thing on a table. They built the whole thing on a table and they shot it right there. And because you didn't see anything outside that table, you believed that was real. So they put a mountain on the table, they put a road on the table, they created this model right on the table in their house, and they shot it, and you could connect to it. But you see, once that camera zooms out and then you see the table and you see the environment, you now realize that, oh, okay, it's different. Now that's what relativity is. So if you happen to see the mattress in this picture, or you see the table he was jumping off of in this picture, it might change your perspective of what is going on there. If you also see any other thing that can help you relate to size, do you get, or whatever it is, it changes your perspective. So in this particular image, I've made sure that the whole environment was seemingly bare, right? And then he's just there in that space, so you can't necessarily even see whether he's large or he's small. You can just say, oh yeah, he's a human being, but yeah, you can, it creates that illusion, and it makes it open to interpretation. As an artist, one of the best skills that you can have is to create work that is very open to interpretation, that when the viewer sees it, they are asking questions that their mind is thinking about a lot of things. In one of the images, I tried to put him almost like a giant in a desert, and the desert was at his legs. So you see, even in this one, you will see that he didn't necessarily look like he was a giant in the desert, but at the same time, the desert also looked like he was bigger than it. So it's also still opens your brain up and says, okay, what is going on in this image? What is happening to this guy? Who is this person? What is he all about? Is he a spirit? Is he a giant? Is he What is he exactly? That is the beauty of art. It creates questions. Now, as an artist, that's what you want to do. In this image, these are some of the things I did. Anyways, to the best of my knowledge, we were all still learning. And these are some of the things that I put together to create this work. After I put out this work, I got a lot of beautiful feedback from it, and even personal feedback, like my own self feedback. I really enjoyed, a lot of what was going on in this image. Also, if you look at it, because I used hard lights, some places were dark in the shadows, which creates mystery and contrast. Mystery and contrast equally means open to interpretation easily, that kind of thing. So that's what I also did in this image, basically, or in this set of images. So I'm just going to flip through. I'm just going to let you guys flip through all the images. I'm going to flip through some of the before and after images so that you guys can actually see what happened and how I produced the final results. Like I said, Ethereal for me was the expression of freedom and flow. I called it the energy of the universe. And if you look at the universe, it's an infinitely expanding being. There's this continuous flow of energy. It's like in the morning, the sun would come out, like the sun would shine. Whether you're angry, whether you're sad, whether you complain about it, or whether you're thankful, the sun will keep shining. There's this continuous flow. The moon is going to go round, the full moon is going to come, it's going to go. There's a continuous flow of energy. And in the way his body was, in the way I tried to make him look, it was this, I tried to have him to continue to have this flow of energy, and that was really what I was going for in this image. And honestly, that's it. That's literally it about this image. But aside that, another very important part of it was that I had to seek into myself, look inward, which I would say that all artists, all of you should actually do wherever you're watching this video from. You need to look inward so that you can express what you want to express from inside out. And when I say looking inward, for me, I had to look back into who I was, where I'm coming from, my culture, my color, my everything about me, right? So in terms of the art, like the art pieces that I styled him with, I specifically went for some pieces that took me back to my culture, the masks that give me the more African feel. That was what I was going for in the image. I looked inward and I said, you know what, I need to elevate this African feel, this African essence, this African aesthetic. I need to let people see what I've grown to know, basically, in my own culture, in my own society. And that is also another job that you have as an artist, is to express who you really are authentically, not trying to talk about somebody else's thing. Let the person talk about their own thing. You talk about you, talk about your experience, talk about your feeling, talk about your culture, talk about who you are inward. Look into yourself. Let it come from inside and let it come out. And that's what I was able to achieve in this image. I hope you guys love this image. If you like this image or this set of images, this series, please let me know in the comments below. Guys, I don't know, just let me know what you think about the images, and let me know if I've actually made sense in breaking down this image to you. If you loved this, if you enjoyed this image breakdown series, let me know. I have so many images that I can break them down for you. It wasn't until recently that I started to take pictures of my setup, after I shoot or before I shoot, because most of the time, every setup I do, there's really it just comes as I enjoy it, as I do it. So when I then want to create another work, and maybe I want to take a picture for a client or something, and they use my own images as their mood board or their references, and say, oh, I want this image, Ibukun, I want this image, this one you shot for this person, I want to shoot something exactly like this. And in my head, I'm like, shit, I can't even remember how I shot that image. I just flowed into it, right? So at some point, I decided to take pictures of my setup, when I'm taking images, so that when somebody asks, I can maybe remember exactly, how I shot that image. So I have so many images that I've shot in so many different ways, lighting in so many different ways that I can talk about. So if you want to understand or see, or you want me to explain how I shot any image, please follow me on all my social media platforms and comment below, like this video, subscribe, and let me know, and I will talk about a lot of all these images. This is the very first video from my image breakdown series. I'm sure a lot more will be coming in this series, guys. I'm going to leave you with this. We always look at the external for validity. However, the core of your being is the ultimate reality. I hope you guys had fun. See you in the next one.